Hey guys, welcome. AMD earnings coming up. How's everybody doing? It's been a while since I've been here. Hope everybody's doing fine. Market has been pretty insane, right? It has. Um, but we're hanging through. Hopefully everybody's hanging through. Let's see if we can get today's earnings online. Revenue was pretty good for AMD, so obviously I am super excited. AMD is up about 9.8%. Let me just get a quick second to set everything up, guys. I hope everybody's doing good. Again, I haven't been streaming much, but I have been providing some content here and there. And I've also been talking about my overall mentality in the market. So like I said, hope everyone is doing good. Just give me a quick second to make sure everything is set up and we can get a cool episode today. I really want to take a quick look at earnings and obviously, take a quick. We might do their earnings online. We can discuss that. But let me again just get set up, see everything is working. What's going on, Q? How's everything? And what's going on, Musica number one? Hope you guys are doing good. Uh, Hopefully the market hasn't really hurt you too much. But how's everybody doing? Come on, let me know. Let me know. I know some of you guys are out there. I'm not. Just post on Discord really quick on live stream. Should be able. All right. Oh yeah, Q. Google's super green. It is amazing how strong Google is today. Google stock is up 7%. Also super exciting. I wonder what other earnings we had today. That looks pretty cool. Let's see. We had. Come on. We had AMD. PayPal, I think, is definitely taking quite a hit. What's going on, Maggie? I'm well, but lots of bit. How about you? Yeah, it's hurting. Um, it is hurting right now. But long-term mentality, I think it's okay, right? I mean, it definitely. Oh damn, PayPal's taking quite a hit. It's down 16%. That is insane on PayPal. You would expect them to actually do pretty strong because of the overall holiday season. Definitely something to keep in mind. Something I'm gonna do. PayPal's one I'm gonna keep an eye out for sure. Garcia, what's going on? AMD goes up, Xilinx goes up. Yep, that acquisition should be closed. Should be closed Q1. So within the next 2 months, I think that Xilinx acquisition should be done. They got all the approvals. Fizz, Sue Babe, of course. It's Lisa Sue all the way. Was there any doubt? Any doubt? I actually didn't think they were gonna beat by that much. What else do we have? PayPal, Alphabet. So PayPal took a hit. Alphabet's good. AMD is good. Electronic Arts is probably the only other one that was super interested this week today. Let's see. And Maggie, man, wherever the real estate is, Maggie. I mean, here in Jersey, it is insane to buy a house. I mean, I went to go look at a house a week ago or maybe 2 weeks ago, and it was just listed, and I went during off hours. And there were already people lining up to see the house. So I think that's insane. The real estate market is definitely pretty hot right now. So Electronic Arts, not bad. It's down about 2.62%. I do want to say I want to increase my exposure in the gaming market a little bit more in the next few weeks. But like I said, today is going to be an AMD episode. We're going to take a quick look at their earnings call. Same here. Toronto is going crazy. Oh, Maggie, you're from Toronto, Canada. Pretty interesting. I know Fizz was mentioning that market is hot. Let's see. Let me see. First, let's see if I can get this music on to make sure we can do the call. Fizz, agree. EA probably worth looking at with all the mergers and acquisitions going on. Agree. I mean, it's crazy. Bungie wasn't a huge buy. But it's definitely. I think we're going to continue to see these markets, these acquisitions in the gaming department. So let's see. Let me see if I can get the audio working. You guys can be my guinea pigs. Let me just this. Not like you guys don't know all my information by now, but individual in. All right. So guys, I'm gonna turn up the volume. Let me know if you guys can hear. Oh, actually, hold on. Properties, you guys shouldn't be able to hear anything just yet. Okay, can you guys hear anything? Do you guys hear AMD's amazing song right now? Let me know. Let me know. Yes or no. Just let me know. So what's going on, Christopher? It's low. All right, I'll put it a little bit higher. And so is the music. All right, so let's take a quick look at earnings. I mean, obviously, I just highlighted what's going on, Garcia. Hunter Wolf volume is perfect, and so is the music, and so am I. I'm also perfect, right? But we can see record quarterly revenue of $4.8 billion, up 49%. And for the full year, they gave about $16.4 billion. That's up 68%. Definitely a huge growth here. And the great thing is, before we take a quick look, I want to show this guidance that they gave. I think this is the main reason the stock price is up. Obviously, the huge beat, but look at this huge guidance. For full year of 2022, AMD expects revenue to be $21.5 billion and growth of 31% for the full year. And that's driven by all their businesses, right? Their processors, data centers, GPUs, so that's pretty good. And for the first quarter of 2022, AMD expects revenue to be approximately $5.0 billion, which is about 45% year over year and 4% quarter over quarter. I do believe the quarter is increased by high server and client processor. AMD's EPYC processor, Milan, which is generation 3, continues to be adopted by all the big players. And unfortunately, I do think as of the moment, it's still really bad news for Intel. But this is some form of cutthroat market, right? You have to continue innovating. At the moment, AMD is doing really well. Fizz, stuff does go up in the bubble. A lot of people are leveraged up with many properties. But yeah, not a lot of supply. Very true. I'm guessing you're talking about the real estate market. So let's take a quick look, right? Let's just jump in to earnings. They presented another 9 minutes. So revenue, we saw huge growth, 49% year over year, 12% quarter over quarter. Some other impressive metrics I thought were the gross margins. We can see gross margins, and let me just zoom in. Maybe that's a little bit better. Gross margins, 50%. That's up about 560 basis points, or about 5 percentage points. Year over year, and up a nice amount quarter over quarter. I also wanted to take a quick look at their non-GAAP numbers. Net income grew about 76% year over year. So AMD, definitely a monster. We took a look at that revenue for the full year of 2021, up 68%. Lisa Su, obviously our best friend. Each of their business performed extremely well, with data center revenue doubling year over year, driven by growing adoption of AMD EPYC processor. This is insane. I do believe their third generation Milan has been the strongest for them. And they're releasing the Milan Plus, which is going to be like their Zen 3 Plus processor, which I believe is going to continue to see strong demand. And then they also already have Zen 4 AMD processors set up for next year. So let's take a quick look what else. This is something else I thought was super interesting. I will go back here. Cash from operations for the year was $3.5 billion compared to $1.1 billion in the prior year. So they multiplied their cash flow from operations by 3 times this year alone. And now that they're gonna add Xilinx to the mix, Xilinx also brings in about another. I believe it's another $1 billion in cash flow from operations. So overall, what is there not to like with AMD? In the quarterly segments, they just mentioned that, hey, computing graphics segment is still up. Obviously, it sucks to get a graphics card right now. I mean, have any of you guys gotten a new graphics card? The only way I purchased a new 3070, well, just graphics in general. I know I'm talking about NVIDIA, but just the graphics market is still pretty insane. The 3070 from NVIDIA, the only way I was able to get it was through buying a laptop. I think it's very hard to buy any form of graphics cards right now in this market. But they're also seeing huge demand in their Ryzen processor. What's going on, Skolnick? So both the Ryzen and Radeons continue to do well. Enterprise, embedded, and semi-custom up 75% year over year. Skullnecks, missed the live streams with y'all. I know I should. I mean, when I do these live streams, I remember that hey, maybe I should do them a little bit more often. But it's been pretty busy. It really has. Danny, it took me a week to get 3080, but that's after plenty of experience getting high-end sneakers. Oh wow, yeah, that's. I'm pretty sure the high-end sneakers game teaches you a thing about seeing when stocking is happening. What's the best way to skip out on the bots and everything like that. But that's pretty impressive. Maybe you should pick one up for me and I'll pay you for it. What else? What else do we have? Let's take a quick look at their highlights. So like I mentioned, right, the State Administration of China, of Republic of China, approved Xilinx acquisition. They believe to close on the first quarter of 2022. So that is that's why Xilinx right now we can see AMD is up 9.4%, 9.6. You would see Xilinx is pretty much moving in the same direction. Is it a good time to enter in TSM? Maggie, I do believe in the semiconductor market. These are companies to dollar cost average. They definitely seem quite a pull up right now, Maggie. I like TSM. I don't own it, but I definitely think I'm gonna start looking more into the manufacturing a little bit more. Not open up in big positions, but dollar cost average. I'm looking at TSM. ASML is also pretty cool. And then we have Lam Research, LRCX. So if entering into any of them, I would prefer more dollar cost averaging right now because they've definitely taken quite a pull up. But I do believe the semiconductor market will be strong for the next few years. In general, also just the overall. Let's take a quick look at Y charts. I want to show you this XSD, I believe. This is the Spider Semiconductor ETF, and then if we take a quick look at QQQs, and we take a quick look at SPY, and let's just take a quick look at past 10 years. The semiconductor market obviously took a nice boom up here when we kind of saw this chip shortage, but in general, it usually performs pretty strongly compared to the QQQs, which is really tech orientated. I want to say maybe sometimes getting into a nice ETF wouldn't be a bad move either. EXD is nice, is the Spider. I do like a few others. I think I've done the other three that I enjoy a little bit. The other one I enjoy a little bit more in the semiconductor industry. But the reason I wanted to show this is a lot of people always talk about the semiconductor market and how it's very cyclical, and that they believe they can only invest in it during X amount of times. But you can see in the past 10 years, even though it does seem this cyclicality, it kind of just moves with the market to some extent. So the cycle, I don't know why, semiconductors always get thrown in that kind of cyclical return, but over time it has produced great returns. But let's see, what else do we have with AMD? Recent PR, they're continuing to see strong adoption, like I mentioned, in data center with their AMD EPYC processor. They also kind of opened up AMD Instinct, their accelerators. This is their high performance graphics cards. I personally haven't seen much adoption in here, but they are saying that hey, some big labs are using them at the moment. AMD and Meta, so AMD and Facebook right here, work together to define an open cloud scale single socket server based on AMD's EPYC CPUs. So that's pretty interesting because Meta's also working with NVIDIA to power. NVIDIA's making their the fastest supercomputer with Meta platform. So that's interesting as well. Let's see what else. NVIDIA, this is pretty cool. NVIDIA is adopting Ryzen's Threadripper processors to help power the next generation of cloud gaming. I think we actually took a look at that earlier on. Yeah, that was earlier on in October. I do think AMD and NVIDIA might end up with closer relations in the future. What else do we have? At the 22 CES, they kind of did announce their Zen 3. They also did announce their Zen 4. But Zen 3 is going to be a 6 nanometer. That's pretty interesting. I did not know that. Let's see what else. Yep, so they mentioned Zen 4 processor, which is going to be Genoa. That's going to be the next server. Right now it's Milan. I think Milan is going to do amazing. if Genoa does way better than Milan, I think it's going to be a game changer for this company. I don't believe they kind of gave a date for it, but the new Zen 4 will be a 5 nanometer. Obviously, that 5 nanometer is going to be made by Taiwan Semiconductor, and it's expected to be available in the second half of 2022. So that's interesting. Genoa, the server processor, I believe, will probably be in the end of 2022. So overall, I think they had great earnings. I mean, I wouldn't complain. Obviously, the market is not complaining. AMD is up about 9.68%, and I think we are gonna go live soon with the video, with their presentation. So that should be starting in the next minute or so. But Jose, do you think Intel is getting nervous? Yes and no. I mean, I think Intel is really focusing right now in the manufacturing market. I do believe Intel understand. Intel has accepted that AMD is killing it in the processor market. They're trying to shift it around. There's always the possibility. I think Intel already accepted that. And they're really focusing in that manufacturing aspect. But I do want to say, I want to see how Intel is going to do with the overall graphics card market that they just entered. Let me take a quick look at Intel. I remember Intel was stagnant with their CPUs for like 4 years until, yep, Danny. And fortunately, that's the great thing about innovation, right? If you have competition in the market, it gives you incentives to continue to innovate. Yes, Danny, right? For the gamer, I think even for the normal, they were seeing small growth over time. But now, because of Ryzen, they had to accelerate that growth. So at the end of the day, it's great for the environment. You don't want AMD to be too much of a leader, because who knows, then they might kind of stagnate as well. So you want both Intel and AMD to always be next to each other, because that way they're fighting for competition. And if they're fighting for competition, they're fighting by producing the best that they could. Zen 2 and Zen 3 just changed AMD into a whole new player. I think Zen 2 and Zen 3 were the biggest changers. Zen 1 was just the entry. Zen 1 was just, hey, kind of them entering into the market. But I do believe Zen 2 and Zen 3 were the biggest changers. Zen 4, if they really could come out in that 5 nanometer, I wonder how that's going to perform overall. And now that Zen 3 Plus, which is going to do 3D catching, a little boring engineering terms there, but that also should improve their overall Zen 3 product. So I don't know what AMD, you said it's 5 o'clock and it's 5:02.
And AMD will host its
no video.
2022
All right.
Financial Analyst Day on Thursday.
So guys, let me know if you guys could hear well.
Today's discussions contain forward-looking statements based on current beliefs, assumptions, and expectations.
If it's too low, let me know. I'll put the volume up.
Involve risks and uncertainties that could cause actual results to differ.
And for those that don't know me, I'm Jose Najarro. Welcome to my live stream.
Please refer to the cautionary statement in our press release for more information on factors that could cause the results to differ. We will refer primarily to non-GAAP financial measures during this call. The full non-GAAP to GAAP reconciliations are available in today's press release and the slides posted on our website. Now with that, I will hand the call over to Lisa. Lisa?
Thank you, Laura, and good afternoon to all those listening in today. 2021 was an outstanding year for AMD as we exceeded our aggressive growth goals and delivered another record year. Each of our businesses grew significantly and set new annual revenue records, highlighted by data center revenue more than doubling year over year. Annual revenue grew 68% to a record $16.4 billion, and we expanded gross margin for the 6th straight year. We also delivered record net income and EPS, both of which more than doubled year over year. Looking at the fourth quarter, we ended the year exceptionally strong with our 6th straight quarter of greater than 45% year-over-year revenue growth. Fourth quarter revenue grew 49% from a year ago to a record $4.8 billion. We expanded gross margin by more than 5 percentage points and doubled operating income year over year. Turning to our computing and graphics segment, Revenue increased 32% year over year to $2.6 billion, driven by growth in both Ryzen and Radeon processor sales.
I think their other segment was a little bit stronger, the data center,
grew by a
the custom
double-digit
segment.
percentage from a year ago, led by record notebook sales. We saw strong demand for premium AMD notebooks and our higher-end desktop CPUs in the quarter, as Ryzen 5000 processor unit shipments grew by a double-digit percentage sequentially. As a result, we believe we gained client processor revenue share for the 7th straight quarter. We launched our Ryzen 6000 series notebook CPUs at CES last month, featuring our new Zen 3 Plus core that further extends the leadership compute, gaming, and battery life capabilities.
I wish I would have waited a month before
processors.
purchasing my new laptop.
We increased the number of premium gaming and commercial design wins from Acer, Asus, Dell, HP, Lenovo, and other major PC providers to more than 200, including more than 20 AMD Advantage notebooks that combine Ryzen CPUs, Radeon GPUs, and Radeon software to deliver the ultimate gaming experience. We also provided the first public demonstration of our upcoming Ryzen 7000 desktop processors at CES. Ryzen 7000 series desktop CPUs provide a significant performance increase compared to our current Ryzen processors by combining our high-performance 5nm Zen 4 core with our next-generation memory and I/O technologies in the new AM5 socket. There's a lot of excitement in the market for our next-gen Ryzen desktop
And just to
processors,
remind people,
and we're
Ryzen
on track to
5000
launch
is
in the
currently
second
7
half of
nanometer.
2022.
This one's going to be 5 nanometer.
In graphics, revenue more than doubled year over year for the 3rd straight quarter. Radeon 6000 series GPU unit shipments and revenue both grew by double-digit percentages sequentially, led by strong demand across our RDNA 2 desktop family. At CES, we announced that we expanded our Radeon 6000 series GPU portfolio with our first mainstream RDNA 2 desktop GPU, priced at $199. We also introduced new mobile GPUs that deliver up to 20% more performance than our prior generation, and our first mobile graphics chips for thin and light gaming notebooks. Data center graphics revenue more than doubled year over year, driven largely by HPC wins for our latest Instinct MI200 accelerators. We are seeing growing customer engagements for our data center GPUs based on the leadership AI and HPC performance of our new MI200 accelerators, highlighted by multiple supercomputing
I wish they would have put a little bit
wins
more
in
notes
an
here
expanded
about the
set of
M1200,
platforms on
but they
track to
haven't
launch
really.
from Atos, Dell, HP, Lenovo, Supermicro, and others starting later this quarter. Turning to our enterprise embedded and semi-custom segment, revenue increased 75% year over year to $2.2 billion, driven by record EPYC processor and semi-custom sales. Semi-custom sales increased year over year as the current game console cycle continues outpacing all prior generations. We expect revenue to grow this year, driven by continued strong demand for the latest Microsoft and Sony consoles. Turning to server, we had another outstanding quarter. Revenue more than doubled year over year and increased by a double-digit percentage sequentially, driven by demand across both cloud and enterprise customers.
I think that's the biggest thing, and that's what Intel
revenue
should
more
be
than
worried
doubled
about.
Year over year, as the largest providers expanded internal deployments and more than 130 new AMD-powered instances launched from Amazon Web Services, Alibaba, Google, IBM, Microsoft Azure, and others.
I mean, those 5 are the top
previewed
biggest
a new
clouding
HPC
departments right
instance
now.
Powered by our 3rd-gen EPYC processors with 3D stacked memory that delivers up to 80% more performance than currently available instances. Our differentiated 3D stacking technology further extends the leadership performance of EPYC processors in technical computing workloads like EDA, fluid dynamics, and complex simulations. We started volume production of EPYC processors with 3D stacked memory earlier this quarter in advance of OEM platform launches with all our major server partners. In enterprise, revenue doubled year over year, driven by the ongoing ramp of more than 100 third-gen EPYC platforms available from Dell, HP Enterprise, Lenovo, Supermicro, Cisco, and others. In HPC, EPYC processor adoption was highlighted by the number of AMD-powered supercomputers on the November top 500 fastest supercomputers list, tripling year over year to 73. EPYC processors also dominated the Green 500 list and are now powering 8 of the top 10 most efficient supercomputers in the world. Turning to our overall data center business, we made outstanding progress in the last year. We exited 2021 with data center revenue contributing a mid-20s% of overall revenue, and we
That
expect
is
2022
insane. Holy
to be another
smokes,
year of
20% of
significant
total
growth
revenue.
based on the strong customer demand signals for our current and next generation products. In November, we provided first details of our next generation EPYC processor, codenamed Genoa, that will feature up to 96 Zen 4 cores and next generation memory and I/O technologies, including breakthrough memory expansion capabilities. Customer excitement for Genoa is extremely high as it extends our performance leadership across a broad range of workloads. We also announced the addition of Bergamo to our server roadmap, featuring a version of our Zen 4 core called Zen 4C that has been specifically optimized for cloud-native computing. Bergamo is a high core count, power-efficient CPU that can be used in the same platforms as Genoa. It will feature up to 128 CPU cores and deliver significant performance and power efficiency advantages for cloud workloads. We are sampling Genoa processors to customers now and are
I think this is probably one of their biggest things, that they're making Genoa as a main chip, and then that main chip, they're going to create different chips meant for different markets. So Bergamo is going to be just for the clouding market. This is probably, I think, the smartest thing they've done. Well, they've continued to do smart things. But for the 4th generation EPYC processor, I think this is the great move. Now they're going to be able to hit different markets with just one chip.
Action in the first quarter of 2022. I am more excited than ever about the benefits of the acquisition for both AMD and Xilinx stakeholders. Customer excitement is also high as they look forward to the opportunity to deepen their strategic engagements with AMD based on our expanded technology and solutions portfolio. In summary, I am incredibly proud of our performance in 2021. Our record annual results highlight our strong execution over multiple years to establish the technical, operational, and strategic foundation to position AMD as a high-performance computing leader. Each of our businesses performed extremely well in 2021, with growth significantly ahead of the long-term financial model we outlined at our Financial Analyst Day in 2020. I want to take a moment to recognize and thank the AMD employees whose passion, dedication, and execution have enabled this success. Turning to 2022, demand for our products is very strong, and we look forward to another year of significant growth and share gains as we ramp our current products and launch our next wave of Zen 4 CPUs and RDNA 3 GPUs. We have also made significant investments to secure the capacity needed to support our growth in 2022 and beyond. Looking out over the long term, we are confident in our ability to continue growing significantly faster than the market based on our expanded roadmap investments and the deep relationships we have established with a broad set of customers who view AMD as a strategic enabler of their success. Now I'd like to turn the call over to Devinder to provide some additional color on our fourth quarter and full year financial performance. Devinder?
Random
Thank you,
stranger
Lisa,
danger. That's really
and good
good there
afternoon, everyone.
on what they're doing
We
with
had
the
a very
wafers.
strong 2021 with increased demand for our products. Excellent execution resulted in record annual revenue, continued gross margin expansion, record profitability, and significant cash flow generation. Fourth quarter 2021 revenue of $4.8 billion was our 6th consecutive quarterly record, up 49% from a year ago, driven by strong revenue increases across all businesses. Gross margin was 50%, up 560 basis points from a year ago, driven by a richer mix of products and data center revenue growth. Operating expenses were $1.1 billion compared to $789 million a year ago as we increase investments in our long-term product roadmaps to support the significant growth trajectory of our business. Operating income doubled from a year ago to a record $1.3 billion, up $665 million, primarily driven by significant revenue growth and higher gross margin. Operating margin was 27%, up from 20% a year ago. Net income was a record $1.1 billion, up $486 million from a year ago. Diluted earnings per share was 92 cents compared to 52 cents per share a year ago.
That's insane. The type of growth that you saw this quarter.
15% effective tax rate compared to a 3% rate a year ago. Now turning to fourth quarter business segment results. Computing and Graphics segment revenue was $2.6 billion, up 32% year over year, driven by higher graphics and client processor revenue. Computing and Graphics segment operating income was $566 million, or 22% of revenue, compared to $420 million a year ago. The increase in operating income was driven primarily by higher revenue, partially offset by higher operating expenses.
I do want to say, look how Computing and Graphics and Enterprise have gotten closer. In 2020,
billion,
look, they were about
75%
$3 billion
from
difference.
$1.3 billion the prior
and look
year.
how much it's jumped
The
now.
strong revenue increase was driven by significantly higher EPYC processor and semi-custom sales. EESC segment operating income grew significantly to $762 million, or 34% of revenue, compared to $243 million, or 19% a year ago. Operating income growth was driven primarily by higher revenue and richer product mix, partially offset by higher R&D and go-to-market expenses. Turning to the balance sheet.
And another thing
Cash
to show,
equivalents
you
and
can see
short-term
this.
investments,
You can see the enterprise, even though it is a smaller net revenue, it all does provide better operating incomes. Data centers, obviously, the big players are willing to pay a little bit more money and have higher margins. So this is impressive that they mentioned data center now makes up 20% of total revenue. It means we're going to start seeing an increase of operating income a lot heavier.
To date in the first quarter of 2022 and have $1.2 billion remaining under the authorized $4 billion share repurchase plan. Quarterly free cash flow was $736 million compared to $480 million in the same quarter last year and $764 million in the prior quarter. Inventory was $2 billion, up $53 million from the prior quarter. Now let me turn to our full year financial results. 2021 revenue was $16.4 billion, up 68% year on year, driven by strong growth across all businesses. Gross margin was 48%, up 370 basis points from the prior year, driven by the strength and competitiveness of our EPYC, Radeon, and Ryzen processors. Operating expenses were 24% of revenue compared to 28% in 2020. 2021 operating income was up 146% from a year ago to $4.1 billion, resulting in an operating margin of 25% compared to 17%.
Yeah, that would be pretty high, Danny.
Net income was $3.4 billion.
Might be thinking about gross margins.
118% from the prior year. Full year free cash flow was a record $3.2 billion, resulting in free cash flow margin of 20% for the year. In addition, we invested approximately $1 billion during
free cash flow margin of 20%. That's also pretty impressive. It's crazy how this company has changed in such a little bit of time.
For future revenue and market share growth. Let me now turn to our financial outlook. Today's outlook is based on current expectations and contemplates the current global supply environment and customer signals and does not contemplate the addition of Xilinx as that transaction has not yet closed. First quarter 2022 revenue is expected to be approximately $5 billion plus or minus $100 million, an increase of approximately 45% year-over-year and approximately 4% quarter-on-quarter. The year-over-year increase is expected to be driven by growth across all businesses. The quarter-on-quarter increase is expected to be driven by higher server and client revenue.
And that's pretty cool because normally quarter 4 tends to be the strongest quarter, or quarter 3, and quarter 1 tends to be a little bit weaker.
Non-GAAP gross margin to be approximately 50.5%. Non-GAAP operating expenses to be approximately $1.2 billion. Non-GAAP interest expense, taxes, and other to be approximately $207 million based on a 15% effective tax rate. And the diluted share count to be approximately 1.22 billion shares. For the full year 2022, we expect revenue to be approximately $21.5 billion, an increase of approximately 31% driven by growth across all businesses. We expect non-GAAP gross margin to be approximately 51%, non-GAAP operating expenses to be approximately 24% of revenue, non-GAAP effective tax rate to be 15%, and non-GAAP cash tax rate to be approximately 9% due primarily to the U.S. tax requirement to capitalize R&D and the full utilization of our U.S. net operating losses.
Yeah, Fizz, that's definitely what's happening. Demand is bleeding into all quarters due to the shortage.
We had an outstanding quarter and an excellent year with very strong revenue growth and numerous financial records. As we enter 2022, our leadership products and growing customer momentum continue to position us very well for long-term growth. I look forward to AMD delivering another year of very strong financial performance. With that,
remember, this guidance does not contemplate with
Xilinx
acquisition.
Laura?
And Evans, I do believe they might be sandbagging
Operator,
a
we're
little
ready
bit.
for our first question.
But remember, they do have that kind of
Certainly
supply
not.
restrictions right now.
Answer session. If you'd like to be placed into question queue, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad. One moment, please, while we poll for questions.
All right, and this is my favorite part, the Q&A section. This is where we get to learn a lot. So I'll probably do less talking here.
Yeah, thanks for taking the question and congratulations on the quarter. Just thinking about the full year, guidance. I know that you had mentioned in your prepared remarks that you expect the semi-custom segment to grow. I'm curious if you could help us maybe appreciate how you're thinking about the semi-custom segment relative to the server segment, and whether or not that 30% contribution from total data center still applies for 2023. The outlook that you had provided at the last Analyst Day, or you think that we're tracking above that trend? Thank you.
Sure, Aaron. Thanks for the question. So for 2022, I mean, our current view is that we'll see growth in all of our businesses. We see strong demand for our products, as well as we have increased supply capability given what we've done with our partners. So relative to the growth from the different businesses, the growth will be led by server. So from what we see from customers and sort of design wins and platforms and all that, server will be very strong next year. But we also expect growth from our other businesses, including consoles, including our PC business, our graphics business, and our embedded business. So we expect the percentage of data center to continue to increase as we go into next year, and we'll give more on that as we go through the year.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you. Our next question today is coming from Matt Ramsey from Cowen and Company. Your line is now live.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon for the whole team. But Lisa, congrats on getting close on Xilinx. Excited to see what that brings, and obviously the strong results. One of the questions I'm getting tonight is with such a strong start, greater than 30% guidance for revenue in 2022. Can you just kind of walk us through, maybe with a little more specificity, some of the things that you've done in the supply chain around substrate, around back-end test and package, around wafer demand, and just to give people comfort that there's coverage there and visibility and the potential for upside, particularly as you take server and desktop onto 5 nanometer, I imagine 7 nanometer capacity won't go away. It'll stay as that new capacity comes online. So I just want to make sure I understand all the variables around the confidence in supply. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. Thanks for the question. So, we've been working on, sort of the supply chain really for the last 4 or 5 quarters.
No problem,
knowing the growth that we have from a product standpoint and the visibility that we have from customers. So, in regards to your question on 2022 supply environment, we've made significant investments in wafer capacity as well as substrate capacity and back-end capacity. We feel very good about our progress in the supply chain to meet the 2022 guidance. And our goal is frankly to have enough supply to satisfy the demand out there. So our view is we're going to continue to work with our partners and our customers to ensure that we know what they need. And likewise, our capacity investments are for 2022, but also beyond 22, because as a business grows, we need to continue to forecast and make plans for that, and that's what we've been working on.
I guess you can't really disclose what are the ways they've done it.
I've been hearing
what's going on, Pilot?
And as you guys roll out the 5 nanometer portfolio, many of those products in server and in desktop will include next generation Infinity Fabric, and it's been a conversation for a while about what you guys have branded sort of A+.
Yeah, I do agree with that, Fizz.
CPU and GPU together. I wonder, as you look out over the next several quarters, Lisa, how would you characterize that combination in importance to your company strategy and the growth? Thanks.
Yeah, well, we're very excited about our 5 nanometer products. I think Zen 4 is very critical. It's a focus for this year for both our server roadmap as well as our client roadmap. And then the work with the Infinity Fabric really is just on top of that and allows us to continue to optimize sort of the AMD CPU and GPU ecosystem together. So whether on the data center side with our data center GPU products, working with EPYC in high performance computing, or on the PC side when we have our AMD APUs plus our discrete graphics, plus the software on top. So it is an very important element of our strategy. And it just goes to continuing to differentiate with the overall portfolio as we go into these new platforms.
Thank you, Matt. Operator, next question, please.
Certainly. Our next question is coming from Ross Seymour from Deutsche Bank. Your line is now live.
Hi, thanks for letting me ask a question. Congrats on the strong results and the strong guide. Lisa, I just want to talk about the computing segment, the client computing side. At least in my model, that was a significant portion of the upside in the quarter after, I believe last quarter you talked about not wanting to fill the channel and make sure you shipped according to demand. So in the near term, what changed? And perhaps more importantly, as you look into
Pilot,
2022,
yes, this is AMD's
it appears that you're planning for significant share gains to continue in that sector. Can you talk a little bit about what gives the confidence for that share gain, please?
Sure, Ross. So, your question about the computing and graphics segment. Look, our focus in this segment is to be very closely aligned with our customers and what they're doing in the market. So we've been monitoring sell in and sell out and sell through trends very carefully. I think the strength that we saw in the fourth quarter was very much a result of sort of the product strength, and we saw very nice notebook demand and continuing at the premium part of the market in commercial gaming, premium ultra thins. So we believe that the PC performance was a bit above our original guidance, but we believe that was to match end user demand. Going into 2022, again, same story. I think what we see is 2021 was a strong year for PCs overall. The industry shipped approximately 350 million units. I think our view is that 2022 will be roughly flattish from a unit standpoint. But we will see some mix changes in there with enterprise and premium being stronger than, for example, low end and education. So, from our standpoint, it's revenue share that we believe we can gain. It's the strength of our Ryzen 6000 series that we just launched at CES. We have 200 platforms from all of the OEM customers, and we have pretty good visibility in working with our customers on that. So I think we feel good about it. And again, the client business is one of all of our businesses will grow. And I like that diversity, frankly, in the portfolio. But we feel good about the progress we've made in PCs, and we'll continue to ensure that we're matching sell-in with sell-out, so that there is not inventory build in the business.
Thanks for all that color. Maybe
What's going on, Big Buck?
Follow up on the pricing side of the equation. You talked about getting enough supply to grow the impressive targets that you guys have for the year. Conceptually and strategically, how do you think about pricing? Is that something you pass along? Is it a tailwind to gross margin? And I don't know if you'd give any sort of precision, but out of the 30% plus that you're guiding to for the fiscal year, roughly, how do we think about pricing as a tailwind within that?
Yeah, well, I would say the way to think about pricing is, the industry has seen, some price increases across the supply chain.
What's going on, Kyle? How's it going?
And, that's as to be expected, given the amount of capacity that we're all putting on to satisfy, this strong demand. So, we're always in this for the long term, and, working with our supply chain partners as well as our customers to ensure that we find a way to kind of share the additional costs. But our focus is on ensuring that we have the supply to meet the high demand. And I think what you're seeing is growth in the model from the standpoint that we've always kind of said we're underrepresented in the business. When you look even today with all of our growth, we're still underrepresented in the business, whether you're talking about the server business or the PC business. And so we believe that our product strength and our customer engagements are such that we can grow significantly in this environment.
That's crazy. AMD saying, hey, we
Thanks,
got
Ross.
the good products,
Thank
but
you.
we're
Next
not
question
the
today
leaders
is
in the
coming from
market,
Vivek
and that's
Arya
where our
from Bank
huge
of
growth can
America.
come
Your
in
line is
from.
live.
Thanks for taking my question. Lisa, I wanted to get your thoughts on the competitive landscape in the server market this year versus last. Your competitor Intel is launching their Sapphire Rapids platform. They seem to be very excited about that. They're adding a lot of capacity in their fabs. Enterprise spending, which has tended to favor them in the past, is also coming back. So I'm just curious, how are you thinking about AMD's ability to gain more share in servers this year?
Yeah, Vivek. So, look, we always expect the competitive environment to be, to be very strong and very aggressive, and that's the way we plan our business. That being the case, I think we're, very happy with the growth that we've seen in the business, sort of last year. And as we look forward, we see opportunities in both cloud and enterprise. On the cloud side, we're in 10 of the largest hyperscalers in the world are using AMD. As they get familiar with us over multiple generations, they're expanding the workloads that they're using AMD on. So we see that across internal and external workloads. In the enterprise segment, we doubled year over year here in 2021. We continue to add more field support to have more people get familiar with our architecture. We have very strong OEM relationships, so I feel very good about our server trajectory. And yes, it's very competitive out there, but we think the data center business is a secular growth business, and within that, we can grow significantly faster than the market.
Got it. For my follow-up, Lisa, the semiconductor industry just went through a very tough time last year and even into this year, given all the supply shortages. I'm curious, what has that done to help you build, stronger relationships with your customers?
Going on, David?
Who are perhaps looking for a more consistent execution on the roadmap and more reliable sources of supply. So how is the shortage environment in semis changed the way customers are looking at AMD today than how they used to look at you historically?
Yeah, I think, Vivek, the most important thing that we are
That's crazy how that works, right,
working on
Robert?
with our customers is really consistent execution. And so when you look at, the last year and sort of some of the supply-demand imbalance, it has actually caused us to work much, much more closely with our customers. I think we have, we're talking about visibility now, multiple quarters and in some cases multiple years out. For the type of capacity that we're talking about, for the size of the customers that we're talking to, we need to do that to plan to have the capability to support all of that capability. So overall, I think we have definitely deepened the relationships with customers. And by the way, also we've deepened the relationships with our supply chain partners. So I think the entire the entire food chain needs to come together to deliver on the very strong demand that's out there. So that's certainly what we've been working on.
That's a great point. Relationships are very important for the overall industry.
Thank you. Our next question today is coming from Toshiya Hari from Goldman Sachs. Your line is now live.
Great. Thank you. Congrats on the strong results, Lisa. I had two questions as well, one relatively short term and one on Xilinx. The short-term question, just on Q1 revenue, you're obviously guiding total company revenue up on a sequential basis. Your nearest competitor talked about CPU inventory corrections in the quarter. Is that something that you're seeing in the market? And if so, is that contemplated in your guidance?
Sure, Toshiya, thanks for the question. So yeah, our guide in Q1 actually is up sequentially. Usually we're down sequentially just given normal seasonality, but the demand patterns are such that demand is strong and we have additional supply coming on board, and so that's why we're guiding sequentially up. As it relates to CPU inventory, whether in PCs or in servers, we don't believe there is any significant inventory of our products, whether at our customers or sort of in the
that's always the funniest one. They're like, "Hey, Intel's seeing a slowdown. Are you guys seeing a slowdown?" And Lisa always goes like, "We're not seeing nowhere near a slowdown. We're still going at full force."
And we believe we're matched to end user demand.
Great. And as my quick follow-up on Xilinx, it's been a while since your initial announcement. I'm sure you've had, quite a bit of back and forth with your customers. You've had time to monitor how they've been performing as a standalone company. How has your view on the company and sort of the technology and the potential revenue synergies going forward evolved at all? I know, you're still waiting to close this thing, so maybe you can't say too much, but just curious how your view on things have evolved as it relates to Xilinx. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm extremely excited about Xilinx. I mean, I would say that we very much have been planning for the integration over this period of time. We've had customers anxious to talk to us about combined roadmaps. When we think about sort of the technology that they have, it's very complementary to ours. Very, very strong team. And their business results were just posted last week, and their business is also doing very, very well. So I think the combination is going to be very exciting. We look forward to telling you a lot more about it as we get to close and beyond.
Thank you. Our next question today is coming from John Pitzer from Credit Suisse. Your line is now live.
Yeah, good afternoon, guys. Lisa, thanks for letting me ask the question. Lisa, a couple questions. First, I'm wondering if you could just help me better understand the fungibility of your capacity planning throughout the year, i.e., I understand that your view on the PC market this year is sort of flattish with a better mix and you gaining share, but in the event that come mid-year that were to change and perhaps be a little bit worse than thought, do you have the ability to rejigger your sort of supply chain to move towards server and CPU? How does that kind of math work?
Yeah, John. So we've certainly worked very hard to give ourselves fungibility amongst the various capacity corridors that we have. So we've done numerous cross qualifications and new factory bring ups and all of that stuff. So I would say it's not 100% fungible. But there is an ability to move across the different businesses, and we make that a dynamic allocation decision, sort of like weekly, based on what we see going on. So I think we have a pretty good pulse on the market. We sort of understand sort of what's going on, and our customers are giving us signals on a regular basis, and so I think we'll be able to manage through all of the puts and takes as we go through the year.
That's helpful. And then my second question, just on data center and GPU, where does that factor into kind of your growth expectations for this year? And now that you've created sort of a strong beachhead of EPYC inside the data center, does that help the sales cycle at all to get more GPU penetration?
Yeah, sure. So data center GPU had a very strong year in 2021. It was sort of a key year for us as we launched the MI200 family, and we had several large supercomputing wins. This year for data center GPU is about the cloud and about sort of expanding beyond sort of the large HPC wins. I view it as a strategic growth vector for us over the next several years. I think your question is a good one about sort of the pull now that EPYC is very sort of well established in these accounts. I do think that that helps us with data center GPU. But the way to think about it is this is a long-term investment for us. The hardware is very, very good. We've been investing more in the software. We've been working with our customers to ensure that our tool chain gets them the performance that they need. And so I would say this is a longer term driver, but I'm pleased with the progress that we made certainly through this last year.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thank you. Our next question is coming from Blayne Curtis from Barclays. Your line is now live.
Hey, thanks for taking my question. I was curious on the EPYC side. In the preamble, you have clearly strong trends in cloud, enterprise, and HPC. I was curious on the comm channel. You had a press release recently with Nokia. I know it's kind of early days, but any kind of comments you had in terms of your design progress there? It's kind of the last area that you haven't really penetrated in servers.
Yeah, sure, Blayne. It's still very early, but yeah, we're very happy with the partnership with Nokia that was announced. As you said, this is an area where we're early in the cycle. It's an area where we're building relationships, and so I feel good about
I didn't know they actually had a partnership with Nokia.
But
is that
I would say it's still
recently,
quite early.
Or is that pretty old?
And then you didn't ask this, but just one of the other things with the communications and 5G, as we bring Xilinx into the equation, they also have very deep relationships with a number of these accounts.
It's actually 5 days old.
We see that as an incremental positive as we think about EPYC in communications.
Thanks. And then maybe for my follow-up, just on the March guidance, semi-custom typically has a pretty seasonal decline. It's been anything but typical, and you had very strong trends, it seems like, at the end of the year. So I'm just kind of curious within that March guidance, if anything you can provide in terms of, I'm assuming it's probably down, but I'm just kind of curious versus normal levels. If you could just dial us in anything, that would be helpful.
Sure. So for the Q1 guide, the sequential up is being driven by primarily by server and then also by client. For semi-custom, it is normally significantly down, and this year it is flattish into the first quarter. And it's as you said, the seasonal patterns aren't there. Demand continues to be strong, and we continue to support our customers with additional product there.
Thanks, Lisa.
Sure.
Thank you. Our next question is coming from Stacy Rasgon from Bernstein Research. Your line is now live.
Hi, guys. Thanks for taking my questions. First, I want to revisit the pricing question. I don't think you quite answered it. I get the inflationary environment. I get your costs are going up. It's fair to pass those along. But of the 31% growth in 2022, how much of a tailwind is pricing? I mean, is it none? Is it some? Like how much? What's the number?
Why is this guy coming so aggressive?
Stacey, I don't think I'm going to answer that exactly. But what I will say is what I said before. Look, we are sharing. As we go through this environment, the key is to have long-term relationships both on the supply chain side and on the customer side. But without a doubt, the predominant growth is products.
Random, you listen to a lot of calls.
Units and ASPs from the mix of the product, and that's the predominant growth.
Okay. For my follow-up, look, I feel really bad about nitpicking on a 51% gross margin, but I am going to, so I apologize in advance. But I'll be honest, like just given the mix seemingly should be getting quite a bit better year over year in 22 versus 21, and you're almost sitting at 51%. I mean, even going into Q1 anyways. Like, why doesn't that margin go higher? Can you give us some feeling of the drivers? I guess from where you're sitting right now in Q4, the Q1 guide through the year. Like, why shouldn't we expect more upside to that gross margin, given where the mix is going?
Yeah, as Stacy, I can take that. As you heard Lisa talk about the semi-custom business, Q4 to Q1, you would expect an increase, but it is flattish, and really it's product mix dependent, right? I think looking at any particular quarter is sometimes not the way to do it. It's kind of looking at the long term. We did 48+% in 2020, and we're going to 51% as a guide in 2022. And if you look at it from that standpoint, the margin of the company continues to go up in a very steady way as data center grows, as we get to a better mix of product within the client and graphics business. And that's, I think, the better way to look at it, Stacy.
Okay, got it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Our next question is coming from Mark Lipacis from Jefferies. Your line is now live.
Hi, thanks for taking my questions. I had one for Lisa and one for Devinder, if I may. Lisa, it seems like one of the potential threats to the merchant processor players like yourself is that your own customers are designing their own processors, and I'm wondering, does AMD have a role working with your customers?
This is a good question. This is a really good question.
Customized solutions, be it tweaking x86 or co-designing something more specific together, hand in hand. I don't know if Xilinx would play a role in that. Could you just talk about what you're doing on with your customers and on that effort?
Yeah, sure, Mark. So, actually, it's a very exciting area. It's, just consider it an evolution of, we've always had a semi-custom model, like the work that we do with the console guys to design specifically for their application. As we look at the broader set of applications, including some of these data center applications, we do believe that there's a sort of the next leg of the stool in terms of deep customer relationships. So we already do a lot of customization around product SKUs and specific optimization points, but we can certainly imagine both customer IP or different incarnations of our IP to really optimize. Because as these applications end up really requiring so much volume, it really does justify additional customization for those cases.
Gotcha. Thank you. And then a follow-up for Devinder, if I may. Devinder, 5-10 years ago, I don't think a lot of people would have expected to hear you talk about buying back billions of dollars worth of stock. So congratulations on that progress. The question on this topic is, where's AMD in terms of evolving this recent capital return push into a policy? Are you at the point where you're just looking opportunistically to buying back stock, or some companies say we're gonna return X% of our cash flow to shareholders? Where's AMD in this in the evolution of capital?
He's like, when is dividend coming?
Thank you.
I think we just started in 2021, $1.8 billion. We did another $1 billion early in 2022. And really those purchases are part of our long-term $4 billion share repurchase program. To your question about policy, I don't think we're quite there yet. We just started. We'll evaluate it as we close the Xilinx transaction, and also our outlook of the business, confidence in the business, and then evaluate what we do from an overall standpoint as we look out to the future, next few years here.
I agree, Fizz. That's what I would prefer.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Our next question is coming from Joe Moore from Morgan Stanley. Your line is now live.
Great, thank you. You've obviously done a great job of bringing on supply, but it seems like AMD product is still relatively tight kind of everywhere. Do you see the constraints being more severe in any of the end markets versus any of the others?
Sure, Joe. Well, I think overall, we have been in a mode of demand is larger than supply, although we've made a lot of progress through 2021. And I expect to make more progress. Really incremental capacity will come online through 2022, especially in the second half. So, I think it's really about sort of our prioritization decisions and trying to ensure that we spend that we're satisfying our customers' needs. But we're definitely working on getting more supply as we go through the year, and I think you should see it loosen up a bit.
Great, thank you. And then for my follow-up, you mentioned, I think, within server that both enterprise and cloud were up over 100%, which is pretty good. Can you talk about the mix of enterprise versus cloud within that business? Give us some qualitative sense of how big enterprise it has become.
Yeah, so enterprise has grown nicely. I mean, we're still cloud weighted. So, if you look, sometimes these patterns, it's better to look on a full year basis. So we are still cloud weighted relative to enterprise, but enterprise has made a really nice progress. It's a sizable business, and we've made a progress with the larger OEMs as well as across a number of regional OEMs.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Operator, we have time for two more, please.
Certainly. Our next question is coming from Chris Caso from Raymond James. Your line is now live.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. First question is if you could give some indication of the strategy behind some of the processor variants that have come out, most recently Milan X and Bergamo coming up. Do those variants represent incremental revenue to AMD? What's the strategy behind it? How does that help the product line?
That's a good question. It's
sure,
like saying
well,
we have
I
Gen
think the
3.
strategy
Why
is,
don't they just focus on Gen 3
as we have
instead of
gotten
creating
more scale
variants?
in the business, we can invest more, and we see ways to further differentiate our product portfolio. So I mean, I think Milan X is really sort of the highest of the highest end. And we see that for technical computing and some of these EDA workloads that does give us a very differentiated product. And then we have the regular Milan product line. We'll have Genoa, and Bergamo is really optimized for cloud. So I do believe it gives us more opportunity to expand from a market share and a footprint standpoint. And I think the broader statement, Chris, is that the data center is so large. There's so many different workloads that you can optimize. Like, by doing these variants, we will actually get a better solution for the customer, give them better total cost of ownership, and hopefully give us a larger footprint in that workload as well.
Thank you. As a follow-up, the follow-up questions about supply and just following up on some of your earlier comments. But can you tell us how you're approaching that now with getting the additional supply? Is it a factor of your customers coming to you with requirements and then you going back to the foundry? And obviously you need to make commitments to the foundries right now. Are those backed up by customer commitments? And in the event that business turns out to be better as it was last year, are you able to procure that additional supply in time for when the business needs it?
Yeah, we've set out a roadmap for frankly not just 2022 but beyond, which allows let's call it very aggressive growth goals. We work that on a regular basis with our customers and our supply chain partners. I would say we have better visibility than we have ever had.
Frankie, they're already buying back shares. I think they bought over $1 billion this year.
Pretty good confidence in terms of what is needed, but there are always going to be some puts and takes, and so we have enough flexibility to do that. But our goal is to dimension for success, right? At the end of the day, that's what we want to do. Is we want to satisfy customer demand, and so we're dimensioning for success. And we'll work with our customers as their demand evolves.
Yeah, Cranky, they purchased about $1.8 billion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our final question today is coming from Harlan Sur from J.P. Morgan. Your line is now live.
Hi, good afternoon. Just wanted to ask about your embedded business. It's not often talked about, but it's a great market, right? Diversified across various end markets. It can also leverage your leading edge and mature portfolio. You've got a pretty good lineup of EPYC-based and Ryzen-based processors targeting embedded. You've also gotten some pretty good design win traction in automotive with guys like Tesla. You've got wins in retail with digital signage, wins in networking, IoT edge platforms. And then with Xilinx, you can sort of really leverage their exposure in industrial, automotive, comm, and consumer end markets. It's a small part of the business today, but how do you see the embedded opportunity for AMD looking out over the next several years?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Harlan. Look, I like the embedded business. You know, I've always liked the embedded business. It's nice, sticky business over many years. It is smaller, but it has grown nicely, and you know, the volume design wins, you know, in automotive, and they've now sort of expanded their usage. You know, they've recently expanded their usage over a broader part of their product portfolio. We've focused on networking and storage as key markets. I do think there is a very good synergy with Xilinx in terms of just the customer set and the channels, and so I do see it as a nice grower for us as we go through it, and there's very good reuse from our server products as well as our client products. So you know, we'll talk a little bit more about it as the business gets to more size, and you know, that'll be part of, you know, our financial analyst day, you know, conversation when we get to that in June.
Perfect. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Harlan.
Thank you. We've reached the end of our question and answer session. I'd like to turn the floor back over for any further closing comments.
Everyone, thank you very much for joining us for our fourth quarter and full year 2021 earnings call. We appreciate your support of our company.
I just want to share my highlights from the earnings
soon. As a reminder, we will have our financial analyst day this year on June the 9th. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. That does conclude today's teleconference. You may disconnect your line at this time and have a wonderful.
All right, so that's crazy. June 9th for Financial Analyst Day. To me, I mean, crazy growth, right? The company is seeing impressive growth. One of the questions there was, hey, is AMD going to return to shareholders anytime soon? It seems AMD will do when they can, but they rather invest in the company. I enjoy that a little bit more. What I thought was pretty interesting is they do mention 20% of total revenue now comes from the data center market. And that's usually a higher margin market, and they continue to see growth there. That's with their processor and their CPUs. So I think that growth there is good, and I don't know where that music is coming from. Let me just cancel that. I think that's AMD. Hold on. Yeah, that was AMD. The other things, what else? I mean, I really do like how Gen 4 AMD Genoa is gonna be kind of split up into like multiple different segments, into multiple different chips. And I do believe this is because AMD has now gotten that relationship built with some of these OEMs. So Gen 3 Milan was a huge adoption, was hugely adopted by some of the big players. Now that they're familiar with AMD because of Gen 3 Milan, I do believe Gen 4 will also be heavily adopted by the big players. They said they're very cloudly based. And with the overall, one of the things I do want to see is how Xilinx and AMD, how they're going to integrate technologies together. I believe probably for the first year, they might still work as separate companies. But I do want to see how that progresses. AMD ended up that call with 10% up, almost 11% for the day. Definitely pretty good for the tech market right now. We can also see Google stock. I didn't take, obviously, we were looking at AMD, but Google is also up 8.62%. So I do believe Google, big player, right? Almost a $2 trillion market cap company. This is going to push the market up. The only one that really took a hit today was PayPal. PayPal is down about 17%. I did see Starbucks was also down for the day. Starbucks actually it kind of flatlined. It was down prior to the earnings call. I guess they mentioned some secret during the earnings that drove it up. So let's see. Any questions? What did you guys enjoy about earnings? And also remember, we will be doing NVIDIA later this month, February 18th or 16th. I forget. Let's see, what else do we have? I've been holding sold last year. Yeah, not David, I bought a position in NVIDIA and AMD before close. Oh, nice, David. I mean, short-term returns, you're probably happy. Even in the long-term returns, I would be happy, I'm pretty sure, for AMD and NVIDIA. David, were you looking more for short-term trade or looking for long-term hold? I want to see how, yeah, that's going to be interesting, those synergies between the two. Yeah, I mean, NVIDIA up 5%. NVIDIA is my number one position. I think, or is it AMD? I don't know. AMD and NVIDIA are, now NVIDIA is. AMD fights for number two. And AMD is probably number two right now. But this is up nicely, a nice 10%. I mean, Xilinx is going to add a nice amount of cash flow from operations, and it's also going to add a lot of new optionality for that market. All right, guys. I'm happy you guys tuned in with me for the show. I'll see you guys. I'll probably do a quick 10-minute video on AMD with all the recaps. But everybody, I do want to say thank you again for joining me on the live streams. I hope everybody had fun. Actually, all right, let's take a quick look. So, Zach, you have a few questions. Let's take a few questions. So we have whom for. I guess 2022 will be more AMD year rather than NVIDIA. NVIDIA failed acquisition. AMD success with Xilinx may change the momentum. So I do think this is. I don't know. I think NVIDIA's, even though NVIDIA didn't get that acquisition, I do believe it's still going to be a strong year for NVIDIA. To me, when I listen to NVIDIA's earnings call, it's just a whole different momentum. They talk about every market that they're hitting. I still believe it's going to be a strong year for NVIDIA. But AMD, the Xilinx acquisition, I actually did a video on it, Zach. Let's take a quick look at my YouTube, and I can share you. Let me go to my channel. Let's take a quick look. I recently did an episode on them. I think it was here. Yep. So one of the best things, I talk about the different products that come in with Xilinx. But you can see Xilinx comes with a nice amount of revenue. In trailing 12 months, they made about $3.7 billion in revenue. And they have about, their cash flow from operations was about $1 billion. So in forms of fundamentals, they're going to be adding AMD with good fundamentals there. Xilinx also deals in different markets that AMD doesn't deal too well in. And Maggie, appreciate the support there. I want to say one of the biggest markets is going to be the A&D, that's the aerospace and defense market, which represents most of the revenue for Xilinx. So that's going to be a huge market. They also work in the data center group, so it's going to accelerate that market as well. But it's also going to enter AMD into other players like the automotive market. So obviously, AMD is mainly focused right now on data center processor, on grabbing that market share. But now they have the optionality to grow everywhere else. Xilinx, AMD and Xilinx combined end of year estimate $200. I mean, it's not impossible, Stanilla. Market prices are hugely volatile, and that can definitely happen. I do believe in the 5-year trend. I wouldn't be sad holding an AMD in the next 5 years. So let's see. Roya, I don't want to own NVIDIA. Why not? And agree, Random. ARM was always a tricky acquisition. I think when I first mentioned ARM's acquisition, I automatically said I didn't believe it was going to happen. There's always a chance it could, but now the chances, like you said, are almost zero. I think they haven't publicly announced it yet. I don't think NVIDIA has publicly announced it yet, but maybe we might get a little bit more. They might completely announce that, hey, that's not going through in this upcoming earnings. But I would, AMD and NVIDIA are two companies I'll gladly own for the next 5 years. Earnings play, but been looking to a long. Oh, nice, David. So great on those earnings play. Congratulations. Starbucks rally after when CEO said they would raise prices again. Previously did so in October and January. I guess a cup of Joe will cost $10 now. That's insane. Coffee is the true chips to buy. NVIDIA, exactly. They come together. I do think so. Any opinion on Marvell? Josh, no opinions at the moment. I don't really follow it too much. AMD and Nvidia are probably my top players that I follow. Qualcomm is another one. Nvidia is too expensive, otherwise I buy. That's true, right, Zachary? Luckily, I got into Nvidia previous prices. This is probably maybe very low dollar cost average. Wow, Google will make a stock split. Yeah, I saw. Is it 20-1 him for? Let's take a look. Google stock split. 20-1. That's insane. If it is, yeah, the chips have the true pricing powers right now. All right, but this is 20-1, right? All right, so I am gonna go work on a quick video, guys. I again appreciate it. Big Bug, Fizz, thank you for coming. Him, Random Stranger, appreciate you. Jesse, appreciate that. Cranky, everybody, Maggie, Random, I mentioned, Zach, Evans, David, appreciate everybody for tuning in. I'll see you guys soon, hopefully. Danny as well, if you're still here. Everybody, thank you so much. Have a good night and spend time with the earnings. Earnings. Oh yeah, Evo, Rosen. We have earnings of Unity in 2 days. Maybe we should also do a stream on Unity. But take care, guys, and see you next time.